We'll talk about the other spicy quotes that did get talked about a lot more in terms of the comment that he made about James Harrison.
I have the exact ones.
Yeah. Go ahead, read that off, please.
JuJu says, the most disrespectful thing is, hey, like I'm James Harrison. Let me go to the Patriots. You lose that strong fan base. That is what JuJu said. He was being asked about like how much the fan base, loyalty, branding had to do with his decision to come back to Pittsburgh. So that was the one thing he said. And actually, one of the immediate, this is actually before he said the most disrespectful thing, James Harrison. This was the first sentence he said after the question. He said, if I go to Baltimore, my fan base here is going to hate me.
He does have a point from his perspective about the fan base potentially not being as fond of him if he were to go to Baltimore. But I think it's different with him compared to Deebo, because just based on careers and productivity and hardware and all the other accolades, JuJu isn't close in any vein to what James was as a player. So I think that's
what he meant to Pittsburgh to that point in their careers.
So it's like, even though when he left, like he obviously, because of the way it happened, it was bad terms, but he's already been back and got applauded. Like, we know who Deebo is. Like, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm just like, and I don't feel like his brand is lacking in any way now because of it. I just think at that time it was different, but we also had TJ, and we understood what it meant. If you wanted Deebo on the field, that means TJ comes off the field. And at the time, we weren't doing that. So that's
he wasn't playing anyway.
Right. So that was the thing. Whereas with JuJu's a significant contributor right now. If JuJu were to leave, it's like, yeah, we're gonna feel some type of way. But then also you just think about career wise, on and off the field stuff. Of recent, from a recency standpoint, we have had to deal with some of the off-field stuff with JuJu, right? The TikTok dancing on the logo stuff, right? So if he were to have left to go to Baltimore this year, yes, people would have been, saying even more stuff about him because of everything that transpired. Sure. And obviously us getting knocked out the way that we did come postseason time. But with Deebo, I don't know, it just felt different. Like, and that was even with me being a part of the situation, it's just
because it was like, yeah, Deebo wasn't getting the playing time.
But you weren't going to take TJ off, and you still have Bud, who was finally starting to come into his own as well.
Yeah, and so he was cut. He was kind of free to go wherever. And in this case, from my standpoint, like if he would have signed with the Ravens, I wouldn't have had any hard feelings. I wouldn't have, like, my fan base is going to hate me. I think that's way too strong.
But we have said that at times we do feel like, he plays into his market. He plays into his crowd, which he should. He's supposed to play into your fan base. They would hate you. They're not going to hate you. They're not going to hate you dude, your fans love you. You got to do a lot to make your fans actually hate you. Typically, I do a lot.
But I think he does have a point. Like he's somewhat, I don't know. He's pretty detailed in how he's thinking about this.
Oh no, without a doubt,
if he can pull off the Steelers for life, his whole career here as a Steeler, and he was even talking about this in the interview. I think it was the last question where he was able to
longevity with it, man.
He was able to match his salary in the off season with some of his sponsorship stuff, his video games, whatever type of vlogs and videos he does. So he's trying to think like, what's the best branding, maybe long term after I leave NFL?
Steelers brand. Like, exactly. When we talk about major franchise, and we talk about just in terms of sporting franchise, not just football, but the Steelers, they're one of those marquee franchises. I mean, they're constantly going to be in the conversation for top 10 franchises, right? Because obviously when we talk about in the world, you got to deal with, your soccer clubs and things like that. And they obviously are massive. But the Steelers as a brand, they're always going to be in that conversation. So if you're JuJu, if you're not in Pittsburgh or Dallas or Green Bay or San Fran, like one of these like marquee, just big, just very recognizable, identifiable franchises, then you don't necessarily want to get attached to it, because as soon as you're done playing, imagine if you're playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars when you retire, you don't have a post market of just being a retired Jacksonville Jaguar. Now you better say you're a retired NFL player before you say you're a retired Jaguar. Whereas when you're a Steeler, it's like, bro, I'm a retired Steeler. Like, I don't care about the NFL. I'm a retired Steeler, and it holds significant weight. It just is different. So if you're JuJu, he understands that. I mean, he sees how the market works, man. He understands the research and just how rabid this fan base is from a global standpoint. So for JuJu, man, yeah, it makes perfect sense.
And I think the comments about James Harrison may be taken out of context a little bit. I don't think it was a shot at James Harrison. I think it was more of just he saw, because he was on the team.
Yeah,
he saw how fans reacted initially, and it's like, I don't necessarily want that to happen to me if I want to be here long term, because I could see the value in staying.
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking. I think it was taken out of context a little bit.
Rookie year for JuJu?
It was. I looked up 2017. I was say,
that was crazy, because that was my last year here. Like, dude, you talk about some uncomfortable times. Like, at least for JuJu, he was on the offensive side of the ball, so he didn't have to sit in these meetings and see what was going on. You're like, bruh. And he would have hit you with the, yo, Mos, watch what I'm about to do today. Like, no, don't. I don't want to know. Just
do it. Don't tell me.
I don't want to be an accomplice. I don't want them to be like, yo, did you know he was going to do this? I want to be able to say, no, I didn't know anything, coach. I was just there. Forgive me, please. It's not a good feeling, man.
Yeah,
shout out to JuJu. He was definitely there for that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it was a shot at Harrison. I think that was just the example he was able to pull from, because he said it really quick too. Because he got on with that answer. He was going into detail about a bunch of other things with it. So that's my kind of take.
Sometimes, man, you just use a name for reference, but then after the fact, and that's what we're supposed to do after the fact, we analyze it, right? We're going to comb through it, and then the fans, they're going to react to it, overreact or underreact, but they're going to have their reactions. It just happens like that. I think, like you said, that he was using it as a reference point, because that is a person where we can all say, okay, I remember that. Oh yeah, I
went to the Patriots.
Those feelings for some of the people. Like, okay, cool, without it necessarily being a, hey, Deebo, you know what I mean? So
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Because I think even Deebo, didn't he like quote tweet it and he like laughed it off a little bit? He was like, yeah, this is funny, like whatever. Not a big deal.
Shout out to Deebo. Deebo, I like when Deebo takes the higher road. You never know with Deebo though. You never know. I'm serious, man.
I think he had the same thoughts as us about it. I don't think it was a direct shot at him.
Hey, you just never know with Deebo. Hey, Deebo different. Deebo
okay.
He wired a little off. You know? So it's kind of like that wire. He's got that short and he got... is this going to burn? Is it going to spark? Is it going to work? You just never know.
He has subtly made a lot of headlines over the past year or so.
All right. Something to see. You just never know. Yeah. You never know.
Yeah.
Hey. That's my dog, though, man. Shout out to Deebo, bro.